If you've been let down by the political class, then you're looking for Sanity Check Saturday mornings on 94.3 FM The Talker.
So wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wiser and I'm older. All this time I was finding myself and I didn't know I was lost. So wake me up when it's all over.
We need to wake up a lot of folks. This is Sanity Check, 94.3 FM The Talker, 888-577-4487, 888-577-4487. Michael, if I'm a little bit more subdued with our usual wake me up, it is because I am subdued. We ran a story that was brought to us by Bruce Levine. Sorry about that, Bruce, and certainly about what we have termed a custody for cash. This week coming up, Michael, we have the Kids for Cash movie debuting here in Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, and certainly this is apropos. And just before I do bring Bruce on, I just want to give a little bit of a background here. Some of the quotes and some of the things that is in the paper, it is not right. We have the investigating themselves. A lot of people are making a lot of money off of children. Folks, if you're wondering what we're talking about, this is about the family courts, what's happening in Lackawanna, what's happening in Luzerne. And quite honestly, Michael, since we broke this story, we're getting information from around the country. Marilee McLean, she's out there. She has testified before Congress, and she said she's done case studies. She sent me some of her books. She said judges are just not held accountable. Money, money, money. Everything is about the money. Another individual called me 6 congressional awards. This one is from Pennsylvania, actually. He works for the FBI. He has a diplomat clearance. Works like I said, with the FBI. He told me, Lou, he says, this is so deep. He says, even with all my connections and being in law enforcement, trying to shed light on these judges and what's going on in family court is huge. Just tell me what we can do, what I can do to help the Independent Gazette, to help the Bruce Levines to get this information out there. Another individual from Northampton County, I can assure you that there are countless families across Pennsylvania who have been destroyed and bankrupt by the corrupt system of the county agencies and family courts. Even years later, many grieved families remain afraid to speak up because of the great fear and intimidation instilled upon them from money-hungry and or sociopathic public employees. This growing 20-year history of malice and greed has affected millions nationwide and countless souls in the Western world. He's talking about this custody for cash. He has said this about the Gazette: we have a great precedent with the Independent Gazette. A young David studying the riverbanks for a smooth stone to place on the front page of his pouch for knocking down the Goliath. We welcome Bruce. Bruce, thanks for joining us today, and thanks for bringing this information to the Gazette. It's something that needs to get out there.
Much appreciated, Lou. Good morning.
Good morning. You have a story to tell. I mean, you were embroiled for over 5 years. And one of the things that really caught my attention speaking with you, there were a couple things, and I first heard some of your information on some radio shows, and at least they were allowed you to get on. But certainly you have brought this information to a lot of the news outlets, which we talk about, and they just didn't want to write about it. But one of the things that really got to me talking to you and now working with the Gazette to try to get this information out there is you came back after all the heartache, after all the things that you have went through. You came back to the community because I might get choked up when you didn't want any more. You used this term, mommies and daddies, to have to go through what you went through.
That's correct, Lou. After the loss of my ex-wife, my boys lost their mother on June 4th, 2010. Leading up to that, I had gone to all the authorities locally. I'd gone to media. And basically, the short of it is I was turned down. Nobody could do anything for me. Nobody was willing to tell the story, to go public. And I really was helpless. The feeling of not being able to protect your children is one that everybody that has a child can relate to intimately. And even family members, grandparents, uncles and aunts, brothers and sisters could relate to that as well. So during this time, I reached out to local authorities, I reached out to media, and it was always a brick wall put up, always an obstacle. Oh, just wait a little while. In any event, that's what brings me here today.
Certainly you brought your information to the FBI, and anybody that's knows anything about what's happened in Lackawanna County recently. The guardian at Longtime is now a admitted felon. She will be, I guess, sentenced here in February. Or perhaps April. I think there's another hearing in February. You probably have more information on that. But really, this is stuff that you have brought to the authorities. And eventually, even they said, listen, they were just looking just for what, Bruce? It was just the money, you said. They didn't care about the emotional distress that is going on in these family courts.
No, they didn't care about and to date, I have good reason to believe that they still don't. After my boys lost their mother, I moved out of the area to help them really deal with the shock, the trauma, to bereave, counseling, new school district. And they did very well. We were about an hour outside of the Lackawanna County community. During that period of time, after the loss of their mother, and I think it's critical probably to note now that family court, Danielle Ross, and judges and counselors, news media, local authorities, law enforcement knew what was going on in my case, and I brought other cases to them, and again, they turned their back. So my faith was waning. In any event, I decided during that period of time that it was time to come back because attorneys and pastors and rabbis and others would say, Bruce, you could sue them. Sue them. Now you could sue them, up and down. And I realized that and it took some time. I thought about it over the first 8 months after they lost their mom. This is not what it's about. It's not about money. And, of course, these people were indicating money. And I realized this is a criminal event. This is criminal what happened to me. And what happened is I started talking to others, and I realized criminal what's happening to others. So I decided after a year to come back to the county, enroll them, my children, back into the school district where they were, to be with their family, where they grew up with, be with friends and family. And, one day I decided that I'm going to go to the
FBI?
The Lackawanna County District Attorney's Office, honestly. And I walked in off the street. And I must say, this is after a few years of going to them while my boys were denied rights to see me. I was denied rights to see them, separated by rubber stamp, by court order, without fair trial, without due process, without constitutional rights being denied, right and left. Lawyers, thousands of dollars for lawyer fees, legal aid people. Nobody helped. Nobody helped. I'll get to the lawyers in a second. But, I went to them, and this was after the damage was done. After the damage was done, I went to them and told my story to a detective at Lackawanna County DA's office, and there started the ball rolling. And within a couple of weeks of telling my story to a detective there, I met with the FBI at the Lackawanna County DA's office. And while everybody seemed concerned and seemed interested, sadly to report, even to date, but they were interested in that moment, and there were about 9 people in the room, and me, and just me at the head of a table. And I was, as I say, I wasn't in a very comfortable place, needless to say. But I knew I had to tell the story. I realized after about 10 or 15 minutes that, and they said it, They said it. When I told them about the damage, when I told them about the pain that my family went through, how we were torn apart, and other families, they really tried to get me to see it their way, which was, you know what, Bruce? You're all over the place, Bruce. You're scattered, Bruce. Focus, Bruce. We're interested in the money. We're interested in the money. Tell us about the bills. Tell us about the money, Danielle Ross, and the bills and the statements and the receipts and how much money did you give. And Bruce, who else do you know that this happened to? Because that's what the IRS was looking at, Bruce. They're looking at the money. I looked around the table. They all know who they are. In fact, I'd love, and I've been calling for a meeting with them, a public meeting, a private meeting, and I continually get turned down. And it's not just me. It's other moms and dads as well. So they looked at me and they said, you know, you really have to focus. Tell us about the money. And as you may know, and for your listeners, that led to a grand jury. They had said that day that they were looking at improprieties, money improprieties, Danielle Ross. IRS was looking. Oh, I said, very good. So I gave them my bills, my statements. I brought in other moms and dads with stacks of bills, and of course their stories. But the authorities didn't care. Apparently, didn't care about the story. The only thing they were interested in was the money. That led to a grand jury, which led to Danielle Ross being indicted on December 16th of 2013. She admitted that she stole money from the United States government, and she pled guilty on one count of, I believe, tax evasion, tax fraud. I'm not even sure exactly what it is. And lastly, on this note, mid-February, I believe, is pre-sentencing. I'm not sure what that is for. And in April, I'm told April 16th, is the sentencing, and A. Richard Caputo, who seems like a very, very, very fair judge, it will be basically deciding the fate of Danielle Ross. And Danielle Ross, while she stole money from mommies and daddies and the government, threatened mommies and daddies with contempt of court letters. She didn't pay her the money.
Exactly.
The people need to know, must know, that there's a story that is huge, underpinning this story. Sure, it's bad to steal money. Sure, it's illegal, unethical, immoral. But the story behind the story that is not being told publicly until now, and if somebody could show me differently, I'm willing to listen. But I don't have an ounce of evidence to show that any organization, entity has talked about this story until the Independent Gazette was willing to move forward.
I want you to hold that thought when we come back. We're certainly going to talk about the intimidation factor and the threats. And we've been hearing all kinds of stuff around the country of this intimidation, of the threats, people being scared to speak out. And that's one of the things that we're going to work on, Bruce, with you and others.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. So just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
We'll be right back after this.
Tea Party Mike, Libertarian Lou. They're Sanity Check. Saturday mornings, 94.3 FM, The Talk.
As we roll down this unfamiliar road, and although this wave is stringing us along, just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
And this is 94.3 FM, The Talk, of Sanity Check. Libertarian Lou, Tea Party Mike X is still holding. Bruce, one of the things that we've been talking about in our third year now, certainly me and Michael, and this is your home, the Independent Gazette, and certainly we encourage people to talk about these issues, and when you feel as though that there's no other place to go to, when you feel that the press has shut you out, when you feel that you have a legitimate story to tell, when no one else will have, I guess, the nerve to print certain things, we will. Bruce, you know. And certainly you know better than I know, because I'm just getting into this, the huge amount of individuals that have come forward that have felt intimidated, people that have legitimate concerns. And if nothing else, should we not look into the practices of these judges? Isn't this the cornerstone of our democracy?
Wow. I think in that area, you're more articulate and learned than I am. Yes, I have felt it firsthand. I've felt the injustice. I've felt the silencing of me, the silencing of my children. From the moment I tried to protect my children, I was silenced by rubber-stamped Lackawanna County Family Court judges saying, "Be quiet." From the moment I walked into family court, that was it.
Bruce,
targeted. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Bruce. I've been hearing, and once again, I'm hearing from individuals that for 5 years they haven't even been able to give testimony, and if they do speak out, they're going to either lose their kids, they're going to lose their rights, they're going to lose. I mean, and then now you're helpless. You're put into a position. Folks, I want you to think about this out there and what Bruce is talking about, and really thank God, Bruce, that you stayed with this, and hopefully this will be the spark that sets prairie fires around this country for people to start looking into our, not just our judicial system, but specifically family courts. But what would you do for our listeners out there? I mean, people are put in a position that you now have to choose to keep your mouth shut. Bruce, I've had, this past week since we broke this story, you talk about draining. Just listening to stories only because it's so heart-wrenching. People saying, I knew I had to give back my child to people that we know are sexually abusing them. What does a mother do? You reach a point when you say, my goodness. And Bruce, I know I'm cutting you off here a little bit, but all I could say, and I'll continue to say this, thank you for not only just bringing this, but for your tenacity and staying with this for 5 years, because now it's out there. Now it's out there. Now, the genie is out of the box.
Yes, I said yesterday, Lou, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you back. Okay, we know that. This week I said to others locally and throughout the country that I've talked to, the bomb has been dropped. Now it's okay. How do we foster change? How do we help? We've been doing that on a daily basis, me and my colleagues, showing up in court, just sitting there watching, just the eyes. They know right now, they know that the eyes and ears of the community, the eyes and ears of the press, thanks to you, Lou.
And our team, and our whole team here.
Excuse me.
Go ahead. I was just saying this is a team effort, and I always like to point it out because it's not about an individual, because each of us, all the folks that have been integral parts of this, we're going to come and go. And we're hoping that what we're doing, and that's the difference here too, Bruce, and you're part of this, is it's a movement. It's a movement in search of the truth and why it's so important. And we're going to get into this somewhere along the way, maybe not today, but certainly the reasons why we started this. But a little bit more, Bruce, on your stuff here, and I want to let people know how they could get in contact with you, not only through the paper, but you do have an organization also that you're going to be out on Fridays, I believe, and handing out the papers and information about what you and your group has done at the Kids for Cash debuts.
Well, February 7th is the premiere of the Kids for Cash movie. That's the Luzerne County scandal, Mark Chiavarella, etc. It premieres at Cinemark on Montage throughout the day. You can go online, buy tickets, advance sales. It's showing in the large theater that seats 600. It'll be in Wilkes-Barre as well. My good friend Sandy Fonzo, whose son committed suicide as a result of the Luzerne County scandal, and others from Luzerne County, I support 100%. She supports me and my efforts and the people that I know.
Fantastic.
And she is she's one of many. And what can I say? We'll be there to not only hand out the paper, but to enlighten, to educate, to let people know in the community that there's help. There's help. There's people out there that can share their story, that they could sit down with and have a cup of coffee and share this cry and whatever, ranting and raving. Like, again, this is critical because my story and those of hundreds of others was eyeballs were rolled. I know mommies and daddies that broke down and cried on their hands and knees in court.
Yeah.
Crying. I was on the phone last night with somebody and lost her. And this is with a judge sitting right there, and the other side, the other party, the guardian ad litem, the former Danielle Ross, former guardian ad litem, standing and laughing. This is the behavior that goes in, that happens. People don't know that I met with Senator Blake. Great guy, listened to my story on June 3rd, 2012. Because, again, I didn't know where to go. I met with Tom Marino, and this is not the place where I'm going to judge right here today whether or not Tom or Senator Blake could have or should have or would have. This is not the place. It's not the forum. But what it is the place for me to say is, this is the place. After standing on the street corners for 9-10 weeks with Spruce and Adams, with Toss Ross signs, and everybody telling me, don't you dare do that. She'll never be tossed. Give it up. The corruption's been here for 150 years. That's the way it is. Get over it. After meeting with Senator Blake, with a couple of other individuals, parents, I was detained by a judge in family court for 2.5 hours on February 3rd, 2012. Detained by her. And therein lies the silencing of Bruce. We'll shut him up. He's a punk. Yeah, you know what? Let him stand on the street corner. People will see he's a lunatic.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, Lou, I'm back. Ross is gone. She's no longer dealing with children. I feel comfortable in saying that I helped to bring her down. Law enforcement did a great job. IRS did a great job. The investigators, Peter Smith, great job. But, once again, I go back to the story that underlies the story. The pain, the suffering, the irreparable damage that my children went through. My son Jordan has a quote in your paper. That quote is, and you feel free to read it, that quote is a soft quote. That quote was edited.
It was
edited out. It's funny, but it's not funny. And all of my conversations are like this, Lou. I stayed up last night till 4 o'clock in the morning, which is why I'm not live in the studio, with a dad who was in court yesterday who, I can't even get into it. And I can't get into it because of fear for his intimidation. The fear that his kids will be taken away, not just maybe for a year or 2 years or 3, but till the kid's 18 or forever. Because by then it's gone. The damage is done. And And this is what happens. You talk about intimidation and fear. Parents knowing that if they say something to somebody, and let's say they have, a couple of visits every now and then, they see their kid 30% of the time, it's going, knowing that if they say something about the wrongdoings, whether it's money, whether it's intimidation, they know that it can get worse. And I remind moms and dads, I'm going to use this forum to remind moms and dads out there, when you think, and I hear this constantly, well, the hearing is on Friday, it's just for this. It's just for that. No. They make up their own rules. And you think you're going in just for that, and in fact, it's just for something else, and you lost your kid. You didn't have the chance to look for another attorney, maybe no attorney at all, and they don't care. They don't care. When they took my kids, and they took this father away from my boys that were 12 and 15, and 10, I have two boys that are now 19 and 16. At the time, they were approximately 9 and 12 years old. My sons lost their mother. They were 12 and 15. And the courts knew. They have all the information, and they knew, and they didn't do anything. And I'm going off base here, and I apologize.
No, and we're going to have to cut it. We'll have you back next week, and certainly we're going to move forward working together to expose this as best we can. Bruce, real quick, what's your organization?
Well, the organization on Facebook. Facebook group is called Voices. Of course, you have to look and maybe search for Scranton. That's Voices. I can be tweeted.
Okay. Yep.
Bruce Levine, at Bruce Levine tweeted. And my email address is KidsRights. That's KidsRights at live, LIVE.com. Bruce Levine, you could Google my name. You'll see pictures of me taking down Danielle Ross. She is just a face of the injustice. Just one little face of the injustice. And thank you, Lou, for everything.
Bruce, we'll be talking. I just wanted to, before we go to a quick break, Levine's son, Bruce Levine, Jordan, 19, was only 15 years old when he found his mother dying. And this is what he had to say about Ross. She knew everything was going wrong and did nothing. She let things go. We're going to take a break and be right back.
The answer you're looking